Continuous integration and continuous deployment, which is often called CICD and the part of the DevOps. So, welcome all of you in today's tutorial, and I'll explain about all these stuff today. So, let's first of all go to the session overview, what I'm going to cover. So, the first and foremost thing which we always do in my sessions, that before jumping to the solution, we first identify about what is the concept, what is the use of this, what is the practical example of this and the practical need of doing this. So first of all, we'll cover this, and we'll see what is CI/CD, what is build pipeline, what is release pipeline, how it was hampering our earlier, how our work was hampered, and now how it got resolved with this CI/CD. And then we'll move to our demo, and in what we'll create some dummy project. I'll create repository to VSTS. I'll push my code. I'll create the build pipeline, and then I'll create the release pipeline, and we'll deploy our code to the Azure App Service at last. So the things which you should have, that Visual Studio 2017, of course you should have, then account on VSTS, account on Azure, and the subscription on account also you should have. Okay, so before I jump into the directly to the CI and the CD part, it is important to understand this slide, the branches, the Git branches. So here on the right hand side, you can see we have the master branch here with us. So master branch basically is the very important branch, and is, you can say, the root of your project, and this is the branch from which your code is gets released to the customer. So that is the important branch. Now whenever you create the release pipeline, or whenever you do the deployment for your code to the client, you do it from the master branch. So it is always important to keep this code always bug free and always ready to move to the server. So this is the master branch, and we have the separate branches, 1 2 3. You can have a number of branches depending on your user stories. You can create the branch. So let's say you have created branch, and one of your developer done with the code, and he wants to send the data to the server. Now, before sending data to the master branch, which is really critical one, which I just mentioned, so don't you think we should be 100% sure that the code is not buggy, that it will not break any existing functionality? It should not be, or you can say you should not have any sort of compile time errors or anything. So it is important to check all those validations, right? So you can do this, or you can achieve this with the uh, manual things. Your teammates, your lead can review your code and can make sure. But CI/CD basically is the part of the automation. So we are here to automate the things. And continuous integration build pipeline, when you create, so what you do, you have added n number of validations in the form of task in your pipeline. So whenever your code is getting commit from any of the branch to the master one, so you have created a wall, or you created a window. Hey, these are the number of tasks you should pass before sending this data to the master one. So any of your developer push the code to the master, he actually directly never push the code. Actually, he raised the pull request. So when your reviewer is reviewing the pull request, he can immediately see on the top of the window that build is failed, and he can inform the person. Or even we get the direct emails to our registered emails on the Azure portal, that my code which I just committed, or which I just requested to be merged in the master, just got failed. So this is how you can prevent the things. So yeah, this is an example I was talking about, your local branch which wants to send the data to master one, and if there is a bug in the code, he can immediately came to know about the that failure. So the thing is, the task what you can create in your pipelines, maybe you can have the task that which make sure that the test cases are always pass. Sometimes developer just do the control shift B and push the code, and he forgets to run the test cases, and you might have the situation where test cases are not getting passed even though your build is getting success. So this can be prevented with this Azure pipeline and the build pipeline. Similarly, let's say you want to achieve the 80% of the code quality with the test cases, you can have that task in place. So there are so many tasks which you can add according to the need of your project, and this all will be sorted out automatically. The next step is the deployment, which is done by the release pipeline. Let's say you are done with your code. Now you want to deploy. Deploy. When I say deploy, means you want to test in the test environment, maybe or the prod environment where you have the live thing. What you have done, you can see your functionality. So how do you do this? That's a question. How do you? So let's go little behind what we used to do before this CI/CD came into the picture. I remember my days. I used to deploy my code, my files, JS, CSS, and all those file with some sort of software, FileZilla maybe. And once I deploy and check, I used to check on the live URL, and used to work fine. Other one is you take the credential from your client, the RDP of the server, and you take the RDP actually and configure your server accordingly and copy the code and paste to the server. You fix it, you copy it, you again paste it. You fix it, copy it, and paste it. So with this release thing, with this continuous deployment, once you are done with your code, you just commit your code. Your code automatically get passed with that build pipeline, automatically deployed to the server, and your customer can or you can have the look at that new functionality without going into the hassle of copying and pasting. That was horrible. Okay, very interesting things with the release pipeline environment. Let's say you done with your code, it got succeed in the pipeline, and you deploy it to the server. Are you going to give this functionality directly to the customer without testing? Don't you think I should test it in the environment as well before releasing to the customer? Of course, yes, you want to. So here's a really good thing which our release pipeline gives, with which you can actually create the environments. So generally, we create three environments. In what the first environment is the dev environment. So once you are done with your deployment development part, you push your code. So at first, your code goes to the dev environment. Environment means you have the dedicated URL, dedicated server for this, and using the app services of the Azure. Options can be anything. So in the dev environment, first you check your code. That are this working fine or not? And once you are satisfied with the code, you raise it for the QA environment. Now the email automatically goes to your QA. Hey, this is the developer who has committed this functionality. Now you can have a look at it. And the QA URL is entirely different from the dev environment. Regardless of any sort of restriction, he can test the functionality. And when your QA is satisfied with this functionality, he can approve further to raise it to the client. Very interesting thing is there is a post deployment restriction which actually enforce the restriction in what QA or your dev can approve the request. And once this what we say pipeline gets the approval from your QA or from the dev, anyone, only after this it goes to the staging. That means before your client access the new functionality or your URL, it gets passed from multiple environments and it is 100% checked. So there are very less chances that you face a bug. Although you may have, actually it's a production environment, but most probably you actually do this in a automation, right, in a automatic way. No manual efforts are required. So this is how the CI and the CD works. I have just split those in continuous integration deployment. They are just the definition, but I have explained how they works. Now in the next part, I'll actually do what I mentioned in the slide number first. In the session overview, I'll create the project, move to the VSTS, then create a build pipeline, then create the release pipeline, and do all sort of things. We'll somehow fail our test case, and we'll see how the mail gets triggered to the respective person. We all will cover in the next session. And before this, if you have guys have any sort of query, comments, anytime, you can let me know. Thank you for being here. Thank you.